So yeah, I think this next one's going to surprise a lot of people. This is No Rest for the Wicked, and it looks absolutely beautiful. And so far, from what the press, from what critics are saying, and also from what YouTubers have experienced, things are looking very, very good for this game. Now, a lot of people, if you just look at it, you would say, hey, this is another Diablo, or it's another Path of Exile. It is anything but that. This is a very unique game, and there's some really, really cool features that we definitely need to dive into. That's what we're going to do today. But also, we have some words from the dev team as well. We're going to dive into that because there's some concerns about how the game might run, since yes, it is going to be in early access on PC first. But don't worry, PS5 and Xbox users, I'll get into what's happening there as well. And then we're going to talk about the in-game and a bunch of other cool stuff. So I say we dive straight into this. Starting out with this question right here, it says, do you know the expected playtime for the early access? And I'm thinking they're saying, hey, what's the total hours from beginning to end? How much will I get out of this game? We have a response from the founder of Moon Studios. Check it out. He says, it really depends on how you play, since there are so many meta systems, dense level designs to explore. A live system, we'll get into more about that in just a moment, for enemy respawns and all other replayability systems. For the first time playthrough for all areas, including the Crucible, we're seeing 15 to 25 hours. We'll get into the Crucible as well and the in-game stuff. Now it says, those that further engage with the in-game challenges, bounties, and the town meta systems can enjoy the same realm for much longer. And of course, we hope folks will also start new realms and characters to try different weapons and builds, since our soft class system is shipping with 100 weapons with their unique movesets, rune special system, and all the other character customization, allowing for so much variety and different playstyles. And a really good example of playtime is what streamers and YouTubers got to experience early. It says, in the past, we've been really glad to see how, with the short Wicked inside stretch, that we finish it in 30 to 60 minutes. That's that short demonstration they got their hands on. It says the streamers played for a good 5 to 15 hours and had a lot of fun trying different loadouts and exploring the areas for all of their secrets. We're going to talk about how intricate the open world is and how it is designed differently from what you would actually expect from a game like this. Now, also, there are some concerns about how this game might run, since it is going to be early access. But what we're seeing here is pretty good so far. Now, this is what the co-founder of Moon Studios also said. He says this: to all those concerned with these official specs, which were deduced from a much earlier game build, the game plays much better than they would suggest, especially the quality of adjustments in the settings. Now, also, we are seeing 60 frames per second on 2060 in our testing. There will be some dips in a handful of spots where performance will be a bit lower, but for the most part, we're happy with how it's performing day one for our early access launch. I love the honesty here. It says we will work with the relevant parties to adjust the recommended specs in the near term future. And if you're wondering about the specs, you could pause it right here to see how you can adjust your settings according to what they say. I got to say, I really do appreciate the transparency here. And they did also clarify some really cool settings that you do need to know about before you head into the game, including this right here. This is another thing I personally love that we were able to add for Wicked's launch is frame rate independent motion blur on by default. Smiley face. It allows motion blur to feel more stylized, painterly, and stable across different frame rates, BRR, and it just feels so nice. And of course, you can dial it exactly to your liking with the slider instead of just on-off toggle, and boost it way above 100% if you're someone that really likes motion blur. And there's more, because we also have this. For Wicked, we're finally at the stage of adding cool settings, such as being able to not only turn on off features, but get it just right, but to get just the right amount of controller vibration and camera shakes. And for those that want more, yes, you can even push it even further. So a lot of different settings that you can fine tune for your play style. If you don't want this stuff, you can also shut off. Now, I did mention that this is, of course, Steam Early Access, but it is going to be coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X eventually. Check it out. It says right here, unfortunately, at release, No Rest for the Wicked will be a PC exclusive title. Now, the ARPG is arriving on Steam when it launches on April 18th and will stay that way for an unspecified amount of time. However, the good news is this right here. It says that the developers at Moon Studios have confirmed No Rest for the Wicked is eventually coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X. If you look at the PS5 store page, you'll see a release date is to be confirmed later. At this time, it's unclear exactly how much time the developers need to launch the console port for the game. So I would assume they would want to get through early access. You know what? I say we take a look at the roadmap very quickly here, and then we're going to get into what makes this game special. The defining features, the combat, the in-game, the open world, how it's different from a lot of other games. But here's the roadmap for early access. We have, of course, the launch, Steam Early Access, April 18th. Then we're going to get an update. We're going to be getting multiplayer, which is PvE and PvP. Eventually, we're going to get Update 2, which is going to be known as The Breach, and Beyond, which we're going to be seeing further updates. And it looks like maybe there'll be some sort of farming in the game. Yeah, I mean, it would be cool to see farmland and stuff like that in the game and managing your own farm. We'll see if that pans out, if that's actually the case. But I say we get into the features of this game real quick because, yeah, I mean, this does look like a Diablo clone, even a Path of Exile clone, but it is nothing like that at all. They do define it as an ARPG because it does have that randomness with the loot. I'll talk about that more in just a moment. But yeah, this is going to be very intricate in the way you play. You're going to have, of course, speed and dodging, parry system, full combat system with light and heavy attacks. And it's going to mirror more of the Souls franchise than I would say like Diablo. Even the boss battles are going to feel more Souls-like than what you would experience in a typical ARPG, what you would experience in Diablo or something like that. Also, unlike the Souls franchise, this game here does not have a bonfire resetting mechanic. And when you die, you don't lose experience. You don't go back to where your body was and grab the experience. It does not have anything like that. But the open world itself is super dynamic. We'll talk about more about that in just a moment. Now, let's talk first and foremost about the actual combat system. Yeah, you know, from what everyone has been playing, they say the combat is very sleek. It feels great between the light, heavy attacks. And then also there is backstabbing as well as drop attacks at play here with bigger move sets that you can combine with chain combos, which can also be very unique based on the over 100 weapons that you can discover in the game. You can find maces, staffs for your mages that thrive on intellect, two-handed swords, you name it, it's gonna be here. And then you can customize your character according to your loadout. And yes, there's gonna be parrying, dodging, and it feels great again. Now, you can also apply new types of runes on your weapons, which unlock new abilities that are based off your focus meter. To build up your focus meter, you just attack enemies and it gradually builds, and then you can unleash special attacks based on whatever rune you have applied to your weapon. There's some really cool stuff you can do here, but this game is all about timing. It's similar again to Elden Ring Souls franchise in that regard, in that you're not going to be experiencing like an entire swarm of enemies like an ARPG like Diablo 4. This is going to be about dodging, making sure you manage your stamina, making sure you learn how to parry. And yeah, it can be quite difficult from what, early impressions are saying. And those boss battles are also sweaty palm moments, which I think is pretty appropriate for a game like this. But spamming attacks will not work whatsoever. Now, if you're wondering, is there going to be a hard lock feature in this game? It's definitely going to be more of a soft lock type feature. I would compare it to Ghost of Tsushima, if anything. So in that regard, it seems like it's going to be working very nicely. So I'm not worried about that whatsoever from what they're saying with the early impressions. Now, we've got to talk about your weight class for your character because it definitely influences gameplay big time. So, whatever gear you have on, it's going to be classified as light, medium, or heavy, and it's going to influence how you move around. So for example, if you are classified as a heavy character, when you try to dodge, it'll turn it into an actual shoulder bash. So you can see how it can influence your gameplay. And some people might actually like that sort of thing. Or if you are classified as a light character, you're going to be super nimble and be able to get around enemies on the battlefield. I like the guerrilla warfare type tactics. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be fun messing around with the different play styles. Now let's talk about the RPG mechanics and the progression system of this game. Yes, there is an actual leveling system here, like you know from many, many different open world RPGs. You'll be leveling up, and then you'll be getting 3 skill points each time, which then you could dump into health, strength, and stamina. But there's also stats for dex builds, intelligence builds, and faith. Does this sound familiar? And you can also upgrade your focus and your equipment load so you can be more nimble on the battlefield if that's what you want to do. And there's also experience potions that you could discover throughout the open world. And we got to talk about your actual gear, your armor. So gear will affect your defensive stats, including your overall poise, your armor rating, and you will need to consider your resistances on your armor because the world's going to be throwing everything at you. You're going to have fire elements, poison, ice, all that stuff, and you're going to have gear, that can protect you in that regard. Now, when it comes to gear, you'll also have options for your main hand and your offhand when it comes to weapons and exactly what weapons you want to carry on you. So there's a lot of options here. And yes, inventory management is something you're going to have to consider. You just can't carry around everything. I'm really crossing my fingers it's not too heavy with the micromanagement in this regard, because I can't stand that personally. But your gear, back to that, will also have a durability rating. This is super important. So when you die, you'll take a hit to your gear. So yeah, the durability rating will go down, 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 and eventually you'll have to repair it. And I think a lot of you are curious about the loot system in this game. How random is it? Can you craft? Let's get into it. So yeah, there's a lot of opinions about games that have random loot. Some people love it, some people hate it. But from what we have seen from the previews, it seems like people are really, really enjoying it. And so it gives a reason, I think it gives a reason for players to actually go out there and chase something and have a reason to keep progressing as long as the loot is really interesting. That's what it's going to come down to. Now, on the other hand, there have been some previewers, some YouTubers that have played the game, and we've heard within the first 2 hours, this is like a small slice of the pie, of course, but they didn't get the weapon they exactly wanted. So they were just constantly trying to find a replacement. They weren't happy with the weapon. So we'll see how the random loot system works out with this one. But overall, from all the previews, I'm seeing that people were pretty happy with that experience. Now, crafting. You can really fine tune what you want out of your weapons through crafting. Yes, there is a system where you can go out in the open world and mine and collect resources, and then you go to your crafting table, you go to your blacksmith, and you craft some really cool items, some gear, some weapons, but also you can craft buffs and potions for healing as well and find recipes for food and things like that. Now, if you are wondering, there is a character creator in this game. It's nothing that's absolutely impressive. It works for a game like this, but I'm not too concerned whatsoever because you're going to be armored up. I think you're going to be more concerned about how you look when you're armored up. So yeah, the character creator isn't going to be like, oh my God, this is the best character creator in the world, but there is options within the character creator. Now we've got to talk about realms because I mentioned it a little bit previously. There will be realms in this game, so you'll start your game by choosing your realm. But from early access, from what everyone experienced, they didn't get to see all of the options on offer when it comes to those realms. So I think there might be something to this. I'm curious to see what happens when we get into like the full version of the game. If we will eventually get into like a survival mode, difficulty settings. I'm completely speculating, by the way, but yeah, there's different things happening here with the realms, and I'm curious to see where it goes. Now, open world and level design. Let's talk about that. Besides, I'm called open world games. We got to dive into it. So yeah, good news. One thing about this game that I love is the open world is handcrafted. It's not just randomly procedurally generated, because anymore when I hear that, I get worried. I'm like, oh man, they didn't put any work into crafting this one. However, with this game, they clearly did, and it looks really stunning. And it's very vertical, by the way. You're hearing a lot of YouTubers, a lot of streamers saying, hey, this game is very, very vertical. And you'll find like different paths within a small area, and it's multi-layered. You think you've explored 100% of it, but it says you've only explored 50% of it. And that's something I'm really looking forward to. Besides, this company, this dev team did work on platformers. So I think it's going to make the open world really interesting. And it's also very similar to the Metroid games in the regard that, you know, you can go back to previous areas that you've already explored, unlock doors, find new treasures that you've never seen before. And that's where the live system really comes into play. Now, the live system is one of those features that they've been toting with this game and advertising. is that, when you go into a new region, you can go back to old region and it's going to change. Events will unfold. You'll find new enemies around, enemies that you don't expect. I'm really curious to see if this system works as advertised. I'm crossing my fingers because that sounds really, really cool. So, that being said, it's wise to explore in this game. It's not the best thing just to beeline through the story. It's not recommended whatsoever. Exploration will really, really reward you, it seems, with this game for sure. Now, mentioning Elden Ring, mentioning the Souls franchise, a lot of guys are wondering, okay, well, if you're comparing it to those games, let's talk about difficulty or difficulty settings. Now, they have not confirmed if there's actual difficulty settings. I'm assuming that there's probably not. That could change. This is early access. But they're also saying this is not the easiest game that you're going to play, but it's also not on the level of a Souls or an Elden Ring. However, when it comes to bosses, those offer the biggest challenge. And I think that's pretty cool. You want a challenge. You want to be able to be like, how do I defeat this boss? Some of the best games have it where you die and you have to really think outside the box. So yeah, this game obviously rewards players that take their time during combat, that really want to learn the nuances of the gameplay. And you're going to have to, it seems. But also, there are some concerns from some of the YouTubers and streamers that play this game in that there was no background music present whatsoever when exploring the open world. They had an early build, of course. This could have changed by the time the game releases on April 18th. But if it's not there and it's something that the community wants, I really do hope they have some sort of background music toggle on and off option. That sure would be nice. Now, there is actually going to be an in-game. They've teased this, and it's through the Crucible, they're calling it. It's going to be a location in the game that you go to, and it seems like it's going to be an arena that has the fiercest, toughest enemies that you can face. And I'm sure the rewards are going to be very lucrative there, but it's going to tie heavily into the in-game. The live system is also going to be tying heavily into the in-game as well. So yeah, it seems like there's going to be a lot to look forward with the future of this game. And again, there's going to be those updates. I'm curious to see what the breach is as well. And yeah, we're going to be getting multiplayer. So this is just the beginning for this one. But there it is. No rest for the wicked. This one I am very excited for. I just think it looks promising. I'm hoping it pans out good. But it does come from a very, very good developer. They've done some really good stuff in their past. And I'm excited to see what they do with this. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned here for more news about No Rest for the Wicked. And yes, more open world gaming goodness. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I will see you all next time. Take care.